This message will be starting from Genesis chapter 3, starting at verse 3, which says, "But God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die." So the topic today is drugs and gangs in the black community. When we were in Africa, our culture was wearing African clothing, African beads, crunching nuts, and getting an education and medicine. And then we had schools for graduation of manhood, where after the completion of our manhood, we was given an automatic wife. And that separated us from sexual morality, because that was part of our culture. And we also, at that time of African culture, we were able to marry more than one wife. But when we came to the United States of America, we were stripped of our nationality and our heritage. That we was no longer Fulani. We were called the so-called nigger, which was a slang word for the Spanish word negro, which means black. That those who were born in the United States, they were born not under their own culture. Where the things that they had learned here, they learned from their European masters, where we developed culture in another country by people who we had seen. We developed our culture by what they told us and what we watched them do. So there were no gangs in the 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 1800s in Africa. Because we lived up under a culture, and we ate our own food, played the drums, and had our own dances and music. And we lost our culture and heritage in the United States of America. The first gangs that were the United States of America were white gangs, such as the Italian Mafia, Al Capone, John Gotti. We grew up hearing about these famous men and organizations, and the drugs came into the environment through the Italian Mafia, that they had blacks working for them because we were poor people, and those who were without a job were hired by the Italian Mafia to sell drugs in the black environment to the black community. That they first started flooding the black community with heroin. And the blacks had seen who were working for them selling their drugs in our community, that the Italians were making billions upon billions of dollars in investments coming out of a poor environment, where they had us hooked to heroin, because heroin was not used in Africa, that we didn't have the knowledge of this or know what this was, that they exposed us to heroin. So the blacks who were working for them banded together and formed their own mafia organizations, where they wanted to control the drugs in the black environment. So the first gangs that were black, our first enemies that we went to war with was the Italian Mafia, to push them and their drugs out of our neighborhoods and environments, and to keep the drug money amongst ourselves, because billions of dollars was coming out of the so-called ghetto into the Italians' pocket. And it was a lot of bombings and a lot of bloodshed to fight them out of our environment. That the first black gangs did not fight themselves. they fought the Italians who they once worked for control of the drugs and the money flow that was leaving from out of our communities. And some of our first black gang leaders was Frank Lucas and Nicky Barnes. And I'm not going to get too much into their past because that's their personal business to be online. But they already served the time for the cases and charges that they were charged for. And then from there, we migrated down to smaller gangs because we were poor. That we could not keep up with the type of money that the Italians were making from us. So we learned the drug game in our environment from the Italians. The Italians are the same people who, at the time of Adolf Hitler, they had attacked Ethiopia at the time of Haile Selassie and wanted to bring Ethiopia under tribute to pay Italy taxes. So that was not their first time taking our money out of our environments and our community and out of our land. So in winding up, forming into different gangs, we had in Los Angeles the Slauson Village. Slauson Village threw up their sign like this. This was their sign. Their sign was the V. The V was a symbol for Slauson Village. We had the businessmen who threw up their sign like this. And these were some of the first gangs that were in Los Angeles. My dad, he was slick from a gang called Walnut. They were the Walnuts, and they threw up the W with 3 fingers like this. This is before Raymond Washington had formed the Crips in East Los Angeles. Then Raymond Washington had came and he moved out here from Chicago. And he was from a gang at first in Chicago, a street gang. And he formed the Crips, which is the gang that he named Baby Crips, because they were only young 14, 15, and 13-year-old kids. And all the other gangs that were in the environment were already established before them. And he formed it for self-defense, because everywhere you went in the black environment, they had other gangs, and people were getting jumped and beat for living on the wrong side of town or crossing a line of people that they did not know. When he formed it, Raymond Washington has said that only a coward hides behind a gun. That it was not formed to fight and kill each other off with guns. It was formed for respect, for men to fight hand-to-hand combat and not to kill each other. But then when the Bloods were formed, they were smaller than the Crips, and they were highly outnumbered. So the Bloods were the first ones who pulled the trigger, because Crips kept crossing their picket lines for fights on a continual daily basis, and they want the Crips to remain on their side of the territory. And then from that ideal, the shooting came in the environment, and we started shooting back and forth. Now, if you go over to the book of Proverbs, chapter 1, starting at verse 8, which says, "Listen, my son, to your father's instructions, and do not forsake your mother's teachings. They will be a garland to grace your head, and a chain to adorn your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, do not give in to them. If they say, come along with us, let's lie in wait for someone's blood. Let's waylay some harmless soul. Let's swallow them alive like the grave and the hole, like those who go down to the pit. We will get all sorts of valuable things and fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot with us, and we will share a common purse. My son, do not go along with them. Do not set foot on their paths, for their feet rush into sin. They are swift to shed blood. How useless to spread a net in full view of all the birds. These men lie in wait for their own blood. They waylay themselves. Such is the end of all who go after ill-gotten gain. It takes away the lives of those who get it. As of today, I'm a prophet sent from God, and I'm declaring a ceasefire between all gangs, a truce. I'm asking for every gang to stop serving idols and to convert over to Christianity and go back to where we first started during the Civil Rights Movement, which is a movement for black people to get ahead and set a future for our children. Past are once people who oppressed us and enslaved us when they did not want us to receive the education to learn how to read or to have jobs in higher positions. Go back to the struggle from which we started from. I love you. And that struggle that we formed was called the Black Power movement. It was not a movement of oppression. It was a movement past or white supremacists who tried to keep us down and did not want to give us civil rights. It was our fight and struggle to get ahead. Black power, make a future for our children, and be a better example.